Welcome to our channel Shiva's Herb, the Medical Cannabis Chronicles. Today we are going to talk about exporting Canadian medical cannabis to Europe. Here's a scenario that sounds simple and absolutely isn't. You haven't got medical cannabis legally grown and processed in Canada. You have got a country in Europe that allows medical cannabis and patients who need it, so you just ship it over, right? No, not even close. Between that Canadian facility and a European pharmacy shelf, it sit three completely separate rule books stacked on top of each other, and a shipment has to satisfy all three at once. Miss any one, and the product doesn't move. So, today I want to walk through what it actually takes. And one honest caveat before we start, this is a high level overview to orient you, not a legal advice and not a compliance plan. The specifics changes fast, and any real export program has to be signed off by compliance and legal specialists. Think of this as the map, not the instruction manual. So, let's start by killing the single biggest misconception. There is no such thing as the European market. People say we are exporting to Europe as if Europe is one destination with one set of rules. Is it is not. The European Union sets some broad pharmaceutical standards, but the actual decision to allow cannabis and the licenses you need happens at the level of each individual country. Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, Portugal, each is its own regulatory world. And here's the practical sting: a license or a quality certificate that's valid in one country does not automatically let you supply next one. So you build the Canadian side and the international side once, but the destination side you rebuild for every single market you want to enter. Keep that in mind because it shapes everything. So start on the Canadian end with Health Canada. Two separate things are needed here, and the people often collapse them into one. First, you need an underlying license under Canadian Cannabis Act to cultivate, process or sell for medical purposes, and that license has to actually permit export. Second, and the separately, you need an export permit for each individual shipment, not a blanket export license. A permit per shipment, single use, valid for a maximum of 6 months. Ship again next month, apply again. And it's strictly for medical or scientific purposes. You cannot export recreational adult use cannabis out of Canada. Full stop. That's blocked by the international treaties, regardless of what's legal at either end. Now, here's the sequencing detail that surprises people. Before Health Canada will issue that export permit, it wants to see that you already hold the import permit from the destination country. So the order is backwards from what you have expected. The European side has to say yes, we authorize this import first, and only then will Canada authorize the export. Health Canada also checks that destination has not blown through its annual import limit and that nothing about the shipment breaks the law in any country it passes through. After the shipment move, you have got 15 days to file a completion notification back to Health Canada, so it's controlled coming and going. Why is it this tightly controlled? Because internationally, cannabis is still a scheduled narcotic under the 1961 UN Single Convention. That treaty is the reason both ends need matching paperwork. The principle is simple. For each consignment, the exporting country and the importing country both issue authorizations and they have to match. On top of that, every country files annual estimates with the International Drug Control Board for how much it will be legitimately import, so there is a quota ceiling in play too. One consequence of the treaty is worth flagging because it's an eligibility gate. A destination country will generally only accept cannabis from a country that signed the single convention and runs a government agency controlling its medical cultivation. Canada ticks that box. The United States notably does not, which is a big reason Canadian product has an opening into Europe that Americans product simply does not. Now, the biggest layer, the destination country itself. Let me use Germany as the worked example because it's the largest medical market in Europe by a wide margin, and because in Europe medical cannabis is regulated as a medicine. That word medicine is doing a lot of work. It means pharmaceutical grade quality is mandatory at two stages. At the growing stage, you need good agriculture and collection practice, GACP. At the manufacturing and processing stage, you need EU-GMP, European Good Manufacturing Practice. And here's the part exporters underestimate, that EU-GMP certificate is issued by a European regulator, and the European regulator will fly out and inspect your Canadian facility. Germany's authority BFARM does not exactly this. Your site has to pass a European inspection on Canadian soil. The product also has to meet the European Pharmacopoeia standard. The official monograph for cannabis flower on identity, potency, and contaminants like heavy metals, pesticide, microbes, and mold toxins. Then there's the single biggest gatekeeper and its role, not a document, the qualified person. Under European pharmaceutical law, no batch of medicine enters the market until a qualified person, a QP, has a certified and released it. Even if your Canadian site is fully EU GMP certified, that batch is not legally on European market until a QP sign it off. And since a Canadian producer usually has no manufacturing presence in Europe, in practice you reach that QP through a European based importing partner who holds a manufacturing and import authorization. Lining up that importer and their QP is one of the very first moves you make, not one of the last. There is one genuine advantage for Canadian product here because Canada sits on a European white list with mutual recognition style arrangements. The requirement to fully retest every batch again on arrival in Europe may be waived for certain product categories. That's a real cost and time saving. But and this matters, the QP still has to certify and release the batch either way. The white list can reduce retesting, it doesn't remove the QP. On top of the quality piece, European importers needs to write stack of national licenses. In Germany, that means an import license under their medicines law for bringing product in from a non-EU country. A manufacturing permit if any manufacturing steps happens locally, a wholesale permit to distribute onward, and per shipment authorization under the narcotics foreign trade rules. Worth noting, Germany actually moved medical cannabis out of its Narcotics Act under its Medicines Act in 2024, which streamlined a lot of domestic handling. but the international import permits still apply, and the rules there are being tightening again as we speak. So that's a live area. And finally, volume. Germany runs a national annual import ceiling. In 2025, demand blew past the original cap so fast that the regulator had to raise the ceiling partway through the year. So, even with every license in place, you are operating inside a quota that can move. So, let me put the sequence together before the order is the thing people get wrong. First, you build GACP cultivation and EU GMP manufacturing, and you pass the European inspection. Second, you line up your European importers with their licenses and their QP. Third, the destination regulator issues the import authorization. Fourth, and only now, you take the import permit to Health Canada and Canada issues the export permit. Fifth, you ship. Sixth, the QP relays the batch in Europe. Seventh, it flows into the licensed wholesale and pharmacy channel, and throughout the shipment notifies get filed on both sides. Two of those steps are slow. Getting EU-GMP certified has historically taken somewhere between 1 and 2 years, and the importer and QP relationship has to exit before any of the permit machinery even works. So, this is a program measured in quarters and years, not weeks. The rest of Europe, briefly, and remember, that was Germany. Every other market rewrites the destination layer. The UK runs a home office controlled drug licensing system with finished cannabis medicine handled separately by its medicines regulator. The Netherlands most supplies through periodic government tenders against the Dutch pharmacopoeia. Portugal routes through its own authority, which is a major inspection and export hub. Same three layers logic every time, but different authority, different form, different standard. So, to pull it together, three layers all mandatory at once. Canada's export controls, the international treaty permits, and the destination country's medicine and nectron regime. Europe is really a dozen separate market. The quality bar is pharmaceutical, not agricultural, and the two quite gatekeepers, the overseas GMP inspection and the qualified person's batch release, are where most of the real work lives. The honest headline: exporting Canadian medical cannabis to Europe is less like shipping a product and more like standing up a small pharmaceutical supply chain across three legal systems. It's very doable. Canada is one of the largest supplier into Europe, but it's built on GMP permits and paperwork, not speed. That's the overview, and the one thing I would leave you with: none of this is a legal advice. The detail move constantly, and every market needs its own cron specialist check before anyone acts on it. Thank you so much.